Please join me in welcoming virtual consulting guru, Jennifer Hoffman.
Thank you. Thank you. So I grew up a long time ago, come home after school, and I would watch the lineup on what was the local channel 13, the public station in New York, and I would start with shows like Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers told me to take your shoes off when you come into your house and always be nice to your neighbors. And that was followed up by Sesame Street, which told me to distinguish and compare items, like one of these things is not like the other. A lot of you remember that, and those of you from Boston, watch Zoom, ZOOM, box 350, Boston, Mass, 02134. I don't know my own address. I don't, but I remember that. That was my earliest blended learning experiences. And now, so many years later, we've got all the technology in the world. It's easy to use, and it's relatively inexpensive, and people don't remember any of the stuff that we're creating. I'm going to talk today about a model, a blended learning model that we've developed, and we are implementing this model on the Docebo platform. The modern learning landscape has definitely changed. Today, everything's a blend. Even this learning session is a blend. You've got job aids. There'll be a follow-up video. We're very good at saying, here's an e-learning, here's a virtual class, here's a face-to-face class, here's an infographic, and they all have the same title, so we must have a blend. But that's not what a blend is about. So I'd like you to think of a learning hub. A learning hub, it's the place where a particular topic, all of the information with that topic, all of the content is in one spot. Within a learning hub are tons of resources. We might have podcasts, we might have recordings, we might have live online interactions and infographics and ebooks. And then within a hub is a campaign. Say we're talking about a leadership hub. Campaign A might be introduction to management. Campaign B might be how to interview a new hire. So if this is the campaign interviewing and evaluating job candidates, we've got a podcast, an infographic, white papers, a lot of different things. We've got an interactive video and a live activity interview role plays. People get a chance to hands-on practice. These things together create a campaign. We've got tools that you learn in class, you can use later on, but not everybody needs all this content. So instead of forcing everybody to go through 2 days worth of content, we create personal learning paths. What do I need to learn now? What resources within this campaign are relevant to me? But see, what we're starting to do is take micro-learning and create a macro-learning environment. I'd like you to consider, instead of PowerPoint slides and workbooks, you use micro-learning to teach. Maybe I say, open up that infographic you downloaded, and let's look at that and apply that to what we've learned. Because we're starting to teach them how to use the tools we expect them to use in the later moments of need. A lot more impactful than at the end of a class saying, by the way, here's a toolkit. By the way, here's a bibliography. We don't have the time as learners to go through all of that information. So we can create personal learning paths within a campaign or even across campaigns. And a lot of times there's content that we use over and over again or would be relevant to different campaigns. Why force people just through one course or campaign when there's all this content within your hub? And then later on, when they need to learn more, they can go back and find that information on their own, because we have taught them how to learn. So we give them a lot of different information. They didn't need to go through that formal campaign. That's our suggested learning path, a recommended learning path for a particular job description. But it lets us create personal learning pathways for everybody. What a hub does, it allows you to connect concepts like interviewing and evaluating job candidates and leading your team, connects them. We're using the same language and the same inventory of resources. We talk about lifelong learning. I think where we are now is beyond that. We're learning all the time, perpetually. So the 5 moments of learning need: when learning for the first time, when learning more, I want to, when remembering or applying what's been learned, when things go wrong, and when things change. What we are very good at as an industry are at number 1 and number 5. But when people are learning more, 2 months down the road, I might go through all those 128 PowerPoints, and hopefully I find the page that, or I probably won't do anything. If we, when learning for the first time, gave some role plays about engagements, and when you start to struggle, go through this video again, go through this exercise again. We give people permission. We're embedding that micro-learning so they can use it later. How many times do you go to a class and 3 months later, like, okay, what's that again? And you only need a trigger. You don't need to get it all trained again. Again, embed that micro-learning right there. And when things go wrong, how do I manage this? What do I do right now? Or how do I fix it after the fact? I'm not going to a class, I need to fix it now. What our job, I think, as modern learning professionals dealing with blended learning is to embed learning. Well, teach them when learning for the first time about all the tools available to them so they're easily accessible when learning more, when remembering, and when things go wrong. When you run into this problem, come back to the hub and take this particular piece of content. I've got a trigger. When it becomes relevant to me, it's us becoming the Google of learning. So people come to our hubs and our learning centers before they go out and get information that might not be right. It's us becoming partners with our learners. Teach them how to use the tools, and they're going to be so much more successful. Instructional design as we go online, I think, is more critical than ever. A lack of design in an online environment will be noticed by your learners long before you figure it out. And what we generally do is, I've got Articulate, let's build it in Articulate. I've got WebEx, let's deliver it on WebEx. What I'm suggesting you add to your instructional design approach is for each resource, first figure out the right appropriate design strategy. Then we go to techniques. So how do we implement that strategy? We still haven't gotten to technology yet. You figure out what's our strategy, what's our technique, and then you figure out what technology to use to deploy it. The technology question should be the last question you answer. I think you make the hub, the resources available all the time. And then they can access everything, but during the formal learning, that first moment of learning need, there's more of a prescribed pathway. But when that's over, they still have access to all of those resources, the ones that were included in the formal and things that they might need in other moments of learning need. So I do think that's why it's more of a campaign and it's perpetual. We have formal insertions, but a course is not over at any point. So thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you, guys.